welcome back to another episode of The Spotlight. We are so happy to see you here today, and we are doing a little bit different than before because I want to bring you a lot more value than just a 30-minute infomercial talking with people in their companies. So we're going to actually delve a little bit deeper today with one of our today's guest, and talk about a little bit of how an adverse childhood experience can actually prepare you to be successful. Because so many people are focused on this happened to me and I can't, right? Well, we're going to start focusing in on this happened to me so I can. And I want to open that up by introducing you to a very special gentleman that's got a really, really good vibe. And he is helping nonprofits become stronger through what he does. And we'll talk a little bit about how he does that and also what skills he picked up along the way that really lend themselves to the work that he's doing now. So please help me welcome Mr. Travis Johnson, head podcaster over at the Non-ProfitArchitect.org. Thanks so much for joining me today, Travis. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Gayle, and just thank you for having me on the show today. I like when I get to meet people on Zoom. I know there's not a lot of in-person meetings going around the U.S., and I love meeting new people and providing impact and value and hanging out.
I'm so glad that you're here. You know, that you bring up a really good point off the top, and that is there's not a whole lot of in-person meetings happening in the country, around the world right now. And traditionally, nonprofits do a lot of their fundraising with galas and in-person luncheons and bringing a celebrity in to speak to a large group of people. And all of those avenues have kind of, for the most part, fallen by the wayside. How is that impacting the nonprofits that you coach?
I tell you, I talked to hundreds of nonprofits in the past year during COVID, and the ones that were able to move online, do something a little differently, they found that they were having record years for their nonprofits. More donations than they've ever had in the past, more engagements. One of the limiting factors about in-person events is you've got to be there, right? So you've got like this 20-mile radius around your little town. And if you're outside of that, I mean, really, are you going to go to the event?
Right.
Maybe not, right? But if you got a friend that's got a nonprofit across the country and they're doing an event, and you just move from, you go grab some snacks in the kitchen, you can log on and be a part of the event. They're now finding attendance isn't limited by fire safety, right? 250 people in the theater. You have 250,000 people on a Zoom call, depending on what plan you have, or I don't know what we're using today.
Yeah.
You have this greater reach. There's a lot of, one of my clients does running for mental health, and she was like, I got to cancel my 5K. I was like, well, have you looked into these virtual 5Ks that people are doing? And I know as I'm saying this, the people that are participants and I love doing these things are kind of virtual 5K'd out already. But again, you don't have to travel to the place, get up early, be there on race day, plan your whole weekend. You can go out, during that time period of 2 or 3 days, run the event, get some pictures of you starting and finishing, post your little, map my ride, map my run. You can post a screenshot of you completing the event, and then you still get the shirt, and you still get the numbers, and you still get a race finishing medal. So there's all these different ways to participate in these online events. Now, on the other side, there's a lot of people that said, you know what, we're not going to ask. We're going to, be sensitive in this and that. And a lot of those people are having the worst years on record. They're closing up shop. And the important thing I think to understand is that the need doesn't go away just because there's some other event going on in the world.
Right.
Whether that was Katrina in the past or school shootings, which are horrific, or any other natural disaster or a pandemic, the need gets greater for almost every single project out there. Anyone that's providing services, mission, impact, the need goes up. And most people understand that. There's a lot of people impacted, and you might have lost that $250 and down, $500 donation down, $1,000 donation now. But what you're gaining is $5,000 donations, $10,000 donations, $50,000 donations to make up the difference, which is wonderful. And there's also this big movement for micro donations, $3, $6, or $9 a month. And people are really revolutionizing their nonprofit with that. Imagine having 100,000 people donating to your organization at $3 a month.
As a Bernie Sanders fan, I can. And that just goes to prove these small amounts, if you've got a bigger pond, can really add up quickly. This is actually really good news to me, because I was concerned about a lot of nonprofits, because as you said, the need increases when we go through these crises like this. Mental health support need increases, that type of thing. So it's really good to hear that there are some nonprofits that are really taking advantage of online cash transferring and growing because of it. And it's a really good point that you brought up, that the ones who didn't, the ones that were going to be super sensitive to how other people might feel, rather than serving their people that they are there to serve, are the ones that aren't going to do so well these days. We've got to get revolutionary about it. I have a ice cream shop. It's not a nonprofit, but there's an ice cream shop in Michigan near my daughter's house that it's so old-timey, throwback. I absolutely love it. But and they stay open all winter, but because of those in-person gatherings going down and the restaurant closures and people can't sit inside, all of their orders pretty much dried up. It's January in Michigan, right? So what's an ice cream shop to do? Well, they decided, instead of closing their doors and laying off the many teenagers that work for them, they were going to swallow their pride and put out a GoFundMe page. And they reached their goal of they surpassed their goal of $50,000 in 24 hours. Right?
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, even in the non-profit world, right? People are willing to give if you specifically ask, right?
Yeah.
Are you finding that as well?
Want. Oh, yeah. People don't know what you want unless you tell them what you need.
Yeah. Exactly.
I was talking with a veteran service organization, and he said he got up in front of a bunch of people and he started kind of cussing them out, saying, "You guys aren't helping me. I'm not seeing this from you. I'm not seeing this from you. I'm not seeing this from you." And I was talking to him. I was like, "Hey, did you tell them what you needed from them? Did you tell them what you wanted them to do?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Did you tell them that the best way they can support you is by sharing your stuff on Facebook? Did you tell them the best thing they could do to really make an impact was give $5 a month? Did you tell them what you wanted?" And he's like, "No." And I was like, "That's leadership 101. You've got to tell them what you want if you want it to happen, right? If you use Jim Mattis's 3-step communication process, what do I know? Who needs to know? And have I told them? And if you haven't told them what you want, you cannot expect them to do anything."
That is so true. That is so very, very true. So if you will, with me, can we talk a little bit about the chaotic childhood that you went through? As you sit back and go, "Oh, what's she coming at me for here?"
Yes, no, absolutely. Do you have specific questions, or you want me to just vomit about it for 20 minutes?
Specifically, I know that you moved around an awful lot, right?
Yeah.
And there may or may not have been other types of trauma in there. I'm not necessarily sure, but even just that moving again and again and again and again and again, it creates a complex abandonment trauma, because you're leaving your friends over and over again, right? So just from the outside, that's one thing that I can see that may have given you kind of some sort of insight or some skills that you specifically directly apply right now in the work that you do, that helps you differentiate yourself maybe a little bit from other people that are trying to do the things that you do, and actually kind of add a superpower to it. Now, the reason I'm asking this is because, we look at all of these major stars and celebrities and these people that are so successful and that type of thing. And more often than not, they had, especially comedians, they had crappy childhoods, right? Which gives them sort of a specific perception or perspective on life that makes things funny because that's how they survived things. I maintain that everybody that had a crappy childhood has skills that when they apply those skills to their present day activities, lift it up. So that's where I'm going with it. What do you got?
Well, I do know that about 40% of world leaders grew up in extreme poverty.
There you go.
When you take ownership of whatever it is that you're doing and you build it for yourself, you can accomplish anything. And when you have nothing, you realize much sooner than people that grew up maybe middle class or, white picket fence or whatever, that it's going to take work and effort from you if you want to have anything that you want to do. Right now in the US, there's 16 times as many first generation millionaires than old money millionaires. 16 times as many. Because being handed down money is not the same thing as you earning it and going out and working for it and getting it for yourself. Mm-hmm. You mentioned all the moves that I went through. I'm on 50 right now, 50.
Yeah.
But growing up, before graduating high school, that was 36 moves, 12 schools, 6 states, 5 foster homes, and surviving 2 murder attempts. And I got into the business I'm in now of helping nonprofits because through all of that crap, there was always some person, some organization, some nonprofit, some church willing to help us keep sheltered, clothed, and fed. And now that I'm in a position to give back, I really view it as my duty to help the helpers. But to the point of view, every time I moved, every time I went somewhere new, there was always someone saying, this is back in the 80s and the 90s, there's always someone saying it was my way or the highway. Like, hey, why are we doing it this way? Because it's my way or the highway. This is how it's got to be done. Mm-hmm. And they didn't say things like, I've tried a bunch of different ways and I found this was the best way to do it for me. They didn't say that back then. They just said, it's my way or the highway. They said, shut up. But what I found is that people all over were doing the same thing, mm-hmm. and they all had the same attitude, but they're all doing it differently. So one of the things that I've been able to pull from that and extract from that is there's so many different ways to be successful. There's so many different ways to organize your life. There's so many different ways to look at a problem. And one of the best things that's been for my life, my career, my military career, what I'm doing now, is that I don't have to see things the same way as everyone else sees them. And if you look at the innovators, people doing things differently, people going above and beyond and doing that next cool thing, they don't see the same thing that everyone else sees. Elon Musk looks up at the stars and be like, man, how can we get people up there? I want to do that. I want to make that happen.
Yeah. I definitely see that having been served by nonprofits so much during that chaotic 30-something moves when you were a kid, that would definitely kind of draw your path into what you're doing now. And I love that the point that you bring up about the different perspectives. All of those different moves showed you different ways of looking at life. Mm-hmm. And bringing that into, it doesn't have to be that way. What other way can it work? I love that. So you're a pretty superpower-ish person in the realm that you're in. What are some of the companies that, if you can't mention names, but maybe some results that you've been able to help some nonprofits with in that getting stronger that you help them with?
I tell you what, nonprofits always face the same kind of difficulties. And you know how it seems like they're just chasing money. They spend all their time chasing money.
Yeah.
Well, what we do in our programs is we help you automate those systems that bring in monthly recurring donations. So you can stop saying, you can say yes to more money and say no to more work, because that's the whole point, right? You get into the nonprofit world to provide an impact, to do things, to meet that mission and to actually help people. And you can't do that if the money's not coming in. Mm-hmm. So something like getting 100,000 people to sign up for $3 a month. We have a podcast episode that talks about how to do that from a guy that's actually done it, right? We have people in my network that I've helped set up and trade something like a free mug or a free t-shirt in exchange for $20 a month. And when you have a startup nonprofit did that in the Oklahoma City area, and they made one post about it one time. They had about 2,000 people in their network, and 100 people said yes to $20 a month. Well, that's not $2,000 a month coming in that you can plan for.
Mm-hmm.
And those out there that are chasing the big donations, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you get a $20,000 yes this year, next year you got to figure out how to get that again.
Mm-hmm.
If you get that same person to say yes to $2,000 a month and put it on autopilot and just be your partner forever, then you're not chasing that 20 grand anymore. You're
Right.
now able to put your focus in another place to help deliver services, impact, or help build the community.
That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And I know from experience that $5 a month on auto withdrawal doesn't even register after. It's like
Yeah.
I tip
It
worse.
doesn't break the bank. It doesn't. It's twofold, right? Because of the organization, they really love it,
Mm-hmm.
right? When they do it for the first time, they're worried about, oh, what's the service fee going to be, and this and that and the other. When you start getting 50, 100, 500 people or 1,000 doing that, you don't care anymore because this monthly money is coming in and it keeps building. When you're on the donor side, you're like, well, is that enough? Is that really making an impact? You are. You are helping build this together with a team of people. You know, what does it take to put together $100,000 a year foundation? It takes 100 people giving $83 a month.
That's
That's it.
it.
That's it. $83 a month, or 80, it's like 83.50. So $84 a month get from one person gets you $1,000 a year. So you get 100 people to do that at $84 a month. There's $100,000. Well, people aren't going to give $84 a month. Fine, get 200 people at $42 a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You have 400 people at $21 a month. And now you have $100,000 to do with what you need to do to get something done, get something accomplished.
So if a nonprofit was looking at, say 9 months from now, they want to create a room with 10 computers in it that people can come in, like an internet cafe, and do their resumes, get job coaching, that type of thing, whatever it is that they're serving. But they've got this big project that they want to do a few months out. So what would be their best way of doing a campaign, just like you've described, to raise the money for that?
My biggest point in everything that I do and everything I teach is that I can't do it alone and I need partners. Who's coming with me? So if you're going to put together an internet cafe with 10 or so computers, and you're going to have what sounds like some coaching going on, who's in the industry that does those things? Do you have a local Dell rep? Like I'm in Oklahoma City, we've got Dell computers down the street here. I can go down there and say, hey, I want this. I know you've got some old computers. Give us 10 of these computers you're not going to use for anything. We'll give you a big plaque that says that you're working with us and doing great things. And when we unveil those things, come on down and be there and meet the people that you're going to work with. The biggest things that are coming out for nonprofits, especially with sponsors, is getting the sponsor involved in what you're doing. It's one thing to cut a check. It's an entirely another thing to be out in the field and seeing what's happening and what's going on and what's happening, right? If you get the owner of a local grocery store to come down when you're feeding the homeless and actually seeing that impact, you've got a partner for life.
Yeah.
You've got a partner for life. Who's got a building? Who's got the space that they can donate, that cares about nonprofits, isn't using the space, and can get a tax write-off because they're donating it to a nonprofit? There's someone out there. There's someone in your area that has that space available, that now just between the two partnerships, you've got the computers covered, you've got the space covered. Well, now you need coaches. Now you have people that are in colleges that are doing this thing, people at tech schools doing this thing, that want to volunteer their time, or even the students that are one step ahead, right? They're not the professor, but they're one step ahead of the people you're trying to help. Well, those very same people can be in there getting volunteer hours to go on their resume at the same time helping you accomplish your mission. So from 3 partnerships with no dollars raised, we created the internet cafe that services 10 people.
That's absolutely brilliant. And I honestly, when I asked that, I was expecting a strategy on creating, a recurring payment offer by the nonprofit. So, I mean, this just shows everybody how deep your coaching and skills go as far as building the strength of a nonprofit, because it's not just about constantly asking for money. Community collaboration, can be worth more than recurring revenue in some realms. It can add to it, if you will. I love that idea. So what else you got?
What else do I have? There's people in the industry right now, they do credit card processing. If you're in any kind of business right now, you are getting your lunch eaten every day. Every single swipe, they take a little bit of chunk of money out of your back end that you can't use for anything else. Right now, there's credit card processors out there like my buddy Isaac Belden at 12B gives. What he does is he gives a competitive rate. So step one, you're putting money directly back into the business's pocket because they're lowering their fees. Mm-hmm. So if you're doing $100,000 a month, you might be losing $5,000 on fees.
Yeah.
Well, if you lower those fees and more of that $5,000 goes back into your pocket every month for your family, for your employees, for your business, for your future, that's an automatic yes, right? Yeah. You're helping a veteran and Isaac Belden get paid. And then from the money that he takes in, he gives a portion of every single swipe to a nonprofit of their choice. What might that look like? That might look like an online gun store, because to change out a credit card processor online, you take some code, you cut and paste it in, and you hit refresh, and it's set. New credit card processor is installed. It might look like a bigger project where you're dealing with trustees of a local junior college, and you get them to change over every point of sale system or to update their code to allow for different processing. So every single book that's bought in the bookstore, every single football ticket, every hot dog that's sold, a portion of every one of those sales goes to a nonprofit of their choice and puts more money in the college's pocket.
So this can be done with any nonprofit, as far as like
nonprofit, any business.
Wow, that's brilliant. I love that. That's really, really amazing. So how can people work with you? Well, first, let me ask about this other guy. How can people get a hold of your friend that's got this setup?
Well, fun fact, if you go to my website, you go to nonprofitarchitect.org and search Isaac Belden, Belden, his podcast shows up and his contact information's in the show notes.
Oh, fabulous. Okay, great. That'll make it really simple for everybody who's going to be going to your site, nonprofitarchitect.org, anyway, to check you out after the show. So you just recently came back from overseas. Thank you, by the way, for coming home safely, so to speak.
I was watching the news over there. I didn't really want to come back.
Yeah. Tell everybody where you were.
I was in the Middle East. I was in the Kingdom of Bahrain, this little island-shaped guy. Looking here in the back corner of my camera.
I think he's off screen right now with us both there. Ooh, I like your weapon.
This is the shape of the island.
Oh,
looks like a weapon.
It does look like a weapon. I thought you had a little katana or something on the wall. Anyways, so that's kind of interesting that you were over in the Middle East and watching the news and a little apprehensive about coming home. Trust me, the rest of us that have been here for a while have been shocked and awed for sure with what's been going on, even up to today. But I imagine that your wife and your kids are happy to have you home. You're back in Oklahoma, correct?
That's right. I'm back here, home safely. Kids and wife are happy I'm home. The dogs are extremely happy that I was home. We've got an older dog, and I don't think I've ever seen her jump so high as when I came back in the door.
That is so sweet. That is so sweet. So what was your favorite part of being over there in Baghdad?
Well, I wasn't in Baghdad.
Sorry,
I was
Bahrain.
I was in Bahrain. I don't want to give anyone the wrong impression here. Right. No big deal. I was over there pre-COVID, so I got a little bit of travel time when I was over there. I grew up poor. I didn't have a whole lot of money. I was enlisted for 12 years before getting commissioned. And finally at a point in our finances where we're good, we're over there, we're making, that tax-free money, which was pretty nice. Mm-hmm. And I finally got the chance to travel. I went to Portugal and Spain. I went to a wedding in Egypt. So my friend's he's like, I love you. You're funny. You should come to my wedding. I was like, okay. He's like, it's in Alexandria. Let's go. And I fly out with my neighbor in Bahrain to go to his wedding in Alexandria and get to spend a week with his family and his friends and people around there and got to see the different culture. And it was just just a whole other world and a whole other world of amazing. Got to fly out to Vienna to see a conference, see my buddy speak live. And he's like, what are you doing for like the weekend? I was like, I've got no plans. He's like, come hang out with me and my family in Budapest. So I was like, sure, I'll go to Budapest with you. Went hung out with him for a week in Budapest. Went with a buddy to Dubai for a long weekend. Had the family fly over for Christmas and New Year's. We did Christmas in Bahrain, and we did New Year's in Dubai on the beach, which was just amazing.
Wow.
And just phenomenal. Turns out in the Middle East, at least in Bahrain, they decorate for Christmas just like we decorate for Christmas. They had a Santa. They were singing Christmas carols in the Middle East in the mall.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't expect that. I didn't expect that. I didn't know what to expect.
No, because isn't Bahrain's predominantly Muslim, correct?
Right, but they're also not haters. There's Christian churches there. I walked around with Jesus t-shirts, obviously American. No one hassled me, gave me a hard time, no problems.
You know, personally, I've never found any person that I've known that they were a Muslim to be anything less than a very peaceful and kind person. So yeah, it stands to reason that they're not. But, you know, it just never crossed my mind that they would have mall Santas.
Yeah, they look a little different, but they're still mall Santas. You know, to the religion piece, you can take any religious text and you can pervert that text to mean whatever you want it to mean. So and pick a religion. There's extremists that come out of all of them, as far as I know, and I don't know everything, but anyone can take. I mean, just look at our media, right? You can take any phrase, any sentence out of context, and everything gets blown out of proportion.
Yes, absolutely true. All right. Well, I really appreciate you being here with us today. And thank you very much for all that you're doing, both in the world as a naval officer and in the world of nonprofits to help those who are helping those like us. So, again, thank you very much. Do you have any final thoughts for our audience before we send them on their way for the week?
Yeah, absolutely. If you find yourself in a situation like I was as a child, I want you to know right now that you have the choice to do whatever you want to do from this day forward. If you have bad parents, you can choose some things to adopt from what they're doing, and you can choose some things to reject. There's a little famous little story out there that talks about meeting two brothers. One was an alcoholic and one was the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And when asked why they are the way they are, they both answered the same way. My father was an alcoholic. I had no choice. One chose to follow the example and one chose to reject the example. So even though you might not be able to choose what's happening to you right now, you can make choices in the future to invest in yourself with knowledge. You can change the people that are around you to be positive, the kind of people that you want to be. You can choose to go to school and do great things. It's up to you.
That's beautiful. Wise thoughts. Thank you so much, Travis. You have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Hey, thanks a lot, Gayle.
Bye, everyone. When you open yourself up to actual energy work, makes that recovery progress so much faster. That recovery is possible. You do not have to live as a victim until your last days. You have unbelievable strength, and I know that because you're still here. Do you want to create something completely unrecognizable with your life? I can show you how.